Captain Jake Morrison had seen many strange things during his 15 years exploring the Outer Rim territories, but nothing quite like what lay before him now. The abandoned research station on Kepler 442b floated in the pale orange light of its distant star, its hull scarred by decades of cosmic radiation and micrometeor impacts. "Scans are showing massive energy signatures from the lower decks," reported Lieutenant Amy Wells from her position at the sensor array. "Whatever they were working on down there, it's still active." Jake nodded grimly. The distress beacon had been broadcasting for 3 months before they'd picked it up, but by then, the crew of Research Station Omega-7 had long since vanished. The Galactic Council had written it off as another pirate raid. But Jake's gut told him this was something else entirely. As their ship, the Resolute, docked with the station's airlock, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The station's corridors were pristine, showing no signs of struggle or forced entry. Personal belongings sat exactly where their owners had left them, meals half finished in the cafeteria, coffee still warm in mugs. "Captain," called out Dr. Lisa Park, the expedition's xenobiologist, from the main laboratory, "you need to see this." Jake followed her voice to a sterile white room filled with containment units and analysis equipment. At the center of the lab sat a large, transparent chamber, roughly the size of a small vehicle. Inside, floating in a viscous blue fluid, were dozens of oval objects covered in what appeared to be soft, silvery fur. "Are those—" Jake began. "Eggs," Dr. Park confirmed, her voice barely above a whisper. "But unlike anything in our databases, the fur isn't organic, it's some kind of energy-conducting material. And Captain, they're not just alive. They're intelligent." She gestured to a nearby monitor displaying complex waveforms. "These are neural activity patterns, not just basic life signs but actual thought processes. Each egg appears to be thinking." Jake studied the readings, his military training warring with scientific curiosity. "How long have they been here?" "According to the research logs, the team found them on the planet's surface 6 months ago. They were just sitting there in a perfect circle, waiting." Dr. Park pulled up another display. "But here's the strange part. Carbon dating suggests they're over 10,000 years old, yet they show no signs of aging or decay." As if responding to their conversation, the eggs began to glow with a soft, pulsing light. The fur-like covering rippled and shifted, creating patterns that seemed almost communicative. "They know we're here," Dr. Park breathed. Jake activated his comm unit. "Wells, I want a full security sweep of this station. Check every room, every access panel, every ventilation shaft. Something made that research team disappear, and I don't think it was pirates." The eggs continued their light show, the patterns becoming more complex and urgent. Jake found himself drawn to them despite every instinct screaming danger. There was something hauntingly beautiful about their synchronized dance of illumination, something that spoke to a deeper part of human consciousness. "Dr. Park, start documenting everything. I want to know what happened to the original research team, and I want to know what these things are." He paused, watching the mesmerizing display. "And more importantly, I want to know what they want." The fuzzy eggs pulsed brighter, as if they understood his words. In that moment, Jake realized they were no longer just observers of an abandoned mystery. They had become part of something far larger and more significant than anyone could have imagined. The discovery that would change humanity's place in the galaxy had begun. The security sweep revealed more questions than answers. Lieutenant Wells's team found the research station's crew quarters empty, but undisturbed, as if 37 scientists and support staff had simply vanished into thin air. No signs of struggle, no emergency protocols activated, no distress calls, beyond the automated beacon. Dr. Park worked tirelessly to decode the research logs while Jake coordinated the investigation. The more they learned about the original team's work, the more unsettling their situation became. The lead researcher was Dr. Marcus Reed, Dr. Park reported, pulling up personnel files. 20 years of xenobiology experience, specializing in pre-contact civilizations. His team was here studying what they initially thought were fossilized remains. Jake studied the holographic displays showing the eggs' internal structure. When did they realize the eggs were alive? Day 43 of their research. Dr. Reed's personal log mentions unprecedented neural activity and possible telepathic capabilities. Dr. Park hesitated. Captain, there's something else. The team's final entries suggest they were beginning to communicate with the eggs. On cue, the eggs' luminescent patterns shifted, becoming more intricate. Jake noticed that certain sequences seemed to repeat, like a language trying to form words. "Show me Reed's last entry," Jake ordered. The hologram flickered to life, revealing a haggard-looking man with wild eyes and an expression of wonder mixed with terror. Day 87. The entities, I can no longer think of them as mere eggs, have shown us incredible things. Visions of their civilization, their technology, their purpose. We understand now why they were left here. They're not abandoned artifacts. They're guardians. Waiting. The recording crackled with static before continuing. The knowledge they possess could advance human civilization by millennia. But there's a price. They require integration, symbiosis. Some of the team have already begun the process voluntarily. I should be horrified, but the clarity of thought, the expanded consciousness, it's beyond anything we could have imagined. The hologram flickered again, showing Reed placing his hand against the containment chamber. We are becoming something more than human, something better. The eggs aren't the discovery. We are. We are their discovery of us. The recording ended abruptly. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Where's the rest of his team now? Dr. Park pulled up the station's internal sensors. That's just it, Captain. According to the life support systems, 37 people are still aboard this station. The sensors detect their life signs, but they're not here. At least, not in any conventional sense. The eggs pulsed brighter, and suddenly Jake could swear he heard something, not with his ears, but inside his mind. Whispers of welcome, of understanding, of invitation. Captain? Lieutenant Wells's voice crackled over the comm from another section of the station. You need to get down to Lab 7. We found something. Jake and Dr. Park hurried through the station's corridors to find Wells standing before another containment chamber. This one was different, larger, and instead of eggs, it contained what appeared to be cocoons. 37 of them, each roughly human-sized and covered in the same silvery fur-like material. They're warm, Wells reported, her voice tight with controlled fear. And Captain, they have human biosignatures, DNA matches for every member of the original research team. Dr. Park scanned the cocoons with her equipment. They're alive, but transformed. The neural patterns are enhanced, expanded, as if their consciousness has been elevated to a higher state. One of the cocoons began to glow, and Jake heard that whisper in his mind again, clearer this time. Do not fear. We offer evolution, not extinction. Your species has potential. We have waited so long for minds capable of joining with us. Jake backed away from the chamber, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. Dr. Park, we're leaving, now. But as they turned to go, they found the corridor filled with a soft, silvery light. The eggs in the main lab had somehow extended their influence throughout the station, and Jake realized with growing dread that they might already be too late to escape unchanged. The fuzzy eggs weren't just ancient artifacts. They were recruitment, tools for something vast and alien. Something that saw humanity not as a threat to be destroyed, but as a species worth elevating to join their cosmic collective. The silvery light intensified as Jake, Dr. Park, and Lieutenant Wells found themselves surrounded by the egg's influence. The station's corridors seemed to pulse with alien consciousness, and the whispers in their minds grew stronger, more insistent. We are the keepers, the voice explained, seeming to come from everywhere at once. For millennia, we have guided species toward their potential. Your kind intrigues us. Your creativity, your resilience, your capacity for both destruction and transcendence. Jake fought against the mental intrusion, focusing on his training and his duty to his crew. Get back to the ship, he ordered Wells and Dr. Park through gritted teeth. Signal the fleet. Tell them to quarantine this system. But even as he spoke, he could feel his resolve wavering. The alien consciousness wasn't forcing itself upon them. It was offering something. Knowledge beyond imagination, perspective that spanned galaxies, the ability to see the universe as the Keepers did. Dr. Park stood transfixed before one of the eggs that had somehow appeared in the corridor. Captain, what if they're right? What if this is the next step in human evolution? The research team didn't disappear. They ascended. That's not ascension, Jake snapped, pointing toward Lab 7. That's assimilation. We'd lose everything that makes us human. You would lose nothing, the Keeper Consciousness corrected. You would gain everything. Your individuality would remain, enhanced by collective wisdom. Your emotions, your memories, your essential selves, all preserved and elevated. Through the station's viewports, Jake could see more ships approaching. Sleek, organic vessels that seemed to be grown rather than built. The Keeper's fleet had arrived, drawn by the awakening of their ancient guardians. Lieutenant Wells was backing toward the docking bay, her face pale but determined. Captain, the Resolute's engines are still warm. We can make a run for it. But Dr. Park wasn't moving. She stood with her palm pressed against the nearest egg's containment field, her eyes wide with wonder. They're showing me their history, Captain. Thousands of civilizations, all elevated, all thriving in harmony across the galaxy. War, poverty, disease, all eliminated through unity of purpose. At the cost of free will, Jake countered. Though he could feel the pull of their offer, the knowledge they promised was intoxicating. Solutions to humanity's greatest challenges, technologies that could make Earth a paradise, the end of conflict and suffering. Free will remains, the Keepers insisted. The choice is always yours. Your research team chose willingly. Some species reject our offer and continue their solitary development. We do not force evolution upon the unwilling. Jake looked at the cocoons in Lab 7, then at Dr. Park's enraptured expression. The weight of choice pressed down on him. Not just for himself, but potentially for all of humanity. If he allowed this contact to proceed, word would spread. Earth's governments would want to study the Keepers, to negotiate with them. Some would accept their offer eagerly. What happens to those who refuse? He asked. They continue as they were. We withdraw and wait. Perhaps their descendants will be ready when we return in another 1,000 years. The honest simplicity of the answer surprised him. No threats, no ultimatums, just patient acceptance of rejection. Dr. Park turned to him, tears streaming down her face. Jake, I can see it all. Every scientific breakthrough we've struggled for, they have the answers. Climate change, aging, interstellar travel, even death itself. We could save everyone, or lose ourselves trying, Jake replied. But his conviction was wavering. The Keeper Consciousness seemed to sense his internal struggle. Your caution honors your species. Perhaps a demonstration would help. Allow one of your number to join us, temporarily. Experience our reality without permanent commitment. If the experience proves unwelcome, we will reverse the process. Jake looked between Dr. Park's eager face and Wells's terrified expression. The choice was impossible. Reject potential salvation for humanity, or risk everything on an alien promise. Through the station's communications array, an automated message was already being broadcast to Earth. First contact established. Benevolent entities offering technological and social advancement, awaiting instructions. Whether Jake chose to accept or reject the Keeper's offer, humanity's future had just been irrevocably changed. The fuzzy eggs had done more than reveal themselves. They had forced humanity to confront the question of what they truly wanted to become. Jake made his decision in the silence that followed the Keeper's offer. I'll do it, he said, stepping forward before Dr. Park could volunteer. But I want guarantees, full reversal if I choose it, and safe passage for my crew regardless of my decision. Agreed. The Keeper Consciousness responded immediately. Your protective instincts serve you well, Captain Morrison. Leadership requires such sacrifice. The fact that they knew his name without introduction should have been alarming, but Jake found himself strangely calm as one of the fuzzy eggs detached from its containment unit and floated toward him. Up close, he could see that the silvery fur wasn't biological at all. It was composed of millions of microscopic filaments that moved with purpose and intelligence. Captain, don't do this, Wells pleaded. But Jake was already reaching out to touch the egg's surface. The moment his fingers made contact, reality exploded into something far greater than he had ever imagined. His consciousness expanded beyond the confines of his skull, beyond the boundaries of his individual identity. Suddenly, he was connected to billions of minds across the galaxy, not absorbed into them, but linked with them. Each maintained their unique perspective while sharing in a vast collective understanding. He experienced the history of the Keepers, civilization, a species that had once been as divided and aggressive as humanity, until they discovered the eggs left by an even older race. They had faced the same choice Jake now confronted, and their acceptance had led to an era of unprecedented peace and progress. Through the network, he saw worlds transformed, desert planets blooming with engineered ecosystems, species that had been on the brink of extinction now thriving, civilizations that had solved poverty, disease, and environmental destruction through shared knowledge and resources. But more than the technology, it was the perspective that staggered him. The petty conflicts that had consumed human history seemed insignificant when viewed from the scale of galactic civilization. Wars fought over resources that were abundant throughout the universe, hatred based on differences that were trivial compared to the diversity of intelligent life among the stars. Now you understand, the collective consciousness communicated. This is not conquest or assimilation. This is graduation. Yet even as he marveled at the expanded awareness, Jake retained his essential self. His memories of Earth, his loyalty to his crew, his love for humanity, all remained intact, simply placed in a broader context. Through the link, he accessed scientific knowledge that could revolutionize human civilization, clean fusion reactors that could power entire continents, medical nanotechnology that could eliminate cancer and extend lifespans indefinitely, terraforming techniques that could make Mars habitable within decades rather than centuries. But he also sensed something else, a subtle sadness within the collective. Not all species they had contacted had accepted their offer. Some had chosen isolation, continuing their solitary development, and often destroying themselves through war or environmental collapse. The Keepers mourned each failure, each opportunity, for transcendence rejected. The choice must be genuine, they explained. Forced evolution is not evolution at all, it is merely conquest by another name. Jake found himself standing in a vast chamber aboard one of the Keeper ships, surrounded by beings from dozens of different worlds. Each had retained their physical form while gaining access to the collective consciousness. They were recognizably themselves, yet more. Artists whose creativity was enhanced by the experiences of 1,000 cultures, scientists whose research was accelerated by shared knowledge, philosophers who contemplated questions across the scope of galactic time. "It's beautiful," he whispered, and realized he had spoken aloud back in the research station. Through his enhanced perception, he could see Dr. Park and Lieutenant Wells watching him with a mixture of fear and fascination. "You understand now why your research team chose to remain," the Keepers said. "They saw what you see. But the choice remains yours, Captain Morrison. Return to your individual existence, or remain with us and help prepare humanity for what lies ahead." Jake felt the weight of decision settling upon him. Through the collective link, he could sense the patience of billions of minds, waiting without judgment for his answer. They genuinely didn't care which choice he made. Both acceptance and rejection were respected equally. The question wasn't whether joining them was right or wrong. The question was whether humanity was ready to take this step, and whether Jake had the right to make that choice for his entire species. As he contemplated the decision that would reshape the future of human civilization, the fuzzy eggs pulsed gently around him, their alien patience somehow comforting in the face of such a momentous choice. Jake's consciousness existed in two states simultaneously. Part of him remained in the research station, connected to the fuzzy egg, while another part explored the vast network of the Keeper Collective. In this expanded state, he began to understand truths that challenged everything he thought he knew about the universe. "There is something you must see," the collective consciousness guided him, "before you make your final choice." Through the network, Jake was transported across space and time to witness the history of other species who had encountered the Keepers. He saw civilizations that had accepted the offer and thrived, but he also saw those who had refused, and the consequences that followed. The Vreks had been a proud warrior race, convinced that their strength came from their independence. They had rejected the Keeper's offer and watched their collective ships depart. Within 3 centuries, they had destroyed themselves in a war over dwindling resources. The Keepers had returned to find nothing but radioactive ruins and extinct dreams. The Helix were brilliant mathematicians who believed their logic was superior to collective wisdom. They had declined integration, certain they could solve their problems alone. Their perfectly calculated society had collapsed when they couldn't account for the chaos of individual emotion and creativity. The Keepers found them centuries later, alive but stagnant, their culture frozen in rigid mathematical perfection. But there were success stories among the independent species too. The Zephyrians had refused the Keeper's offer, but had learned, from the encounter, using the brief contact to unite their fractured world and eventually develop their own interstellar civilization. They now traded peacefully with the Keeper Collective while maintaining their separate identity. Choice is sacred, the Collective explained. We do not judge success or failure by our standards alone. Some species find their own path to transcendence. Others discover that solitude suits them better than unity. Both outcomes have value. Through Dr. Park and Lieutenant Wells, Jake could hear the ongoing communications with Earth. News of the contact had reached the highest levels of government, and the debate had already begun. Some saw the Keepers as humanity's salvation, others as a threat to human independence. The reactions were as varied as humanity itself: fear, wonder, suspicion, hope. But then Jake sensed something else through the collective network. Something the Keepers had not explicitly shared. Behind their patient benevolence, he detected an urgency, a sense of approaching crisis that spanned the galaxy. "What aren't you telling me?" he asked through the mental link. The collective consciousness hesitated, the first sign of uncertainty. Jake had sensed from them. "Show him," came a decision from the network's deepest levels. If he is to choose for his species, he must understand what is coming. Jake's awareness expanded further, beyond the peaceful worlds of the Keeper Collective to the dark spaces between galaxies. There, he perceived something that made his enhanced consciousness recoil in instinctive horror. Vast entities of pure entropy, consumers of complexity and life itself. They moved between galaxies like cosmic locusts, devouring civilizations and leaving behind only the simple, the random, the dead. They are called the Void Shapers, the Collective explained. Ancient beyond measure, they view organized matter and consciousness as an aberration to be corrected. Every few million years they pass through this region of space, undoing the work of evolution and creation. The revelation hit Jake like a physical blow. The Keepers weren't just offering evolution, they were offering survival. Their collective consciousness wasn't just about transcendence. It was about creating a unified defense against something that threatened all life in the galaxy. Individual species, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against the Void Shapers, the network continued. Only through unity, through shared consciousness and purpose, can life persist when they arrive. They come again in less than 1,000 of your years. Jake understood now why some species had thrived, while others had fallen. It wasn't just about choosing evolution or independence. It was about choosing survival or extinction in the face of a cosmic threat beyond imagination. Back in the research station, his physical form trembled as the weight of this knowledge settled upon him. Through the connection, he sensed Dr. Park's concern and Lieutenant Wells' growing alarm. "Now you understand the true choice," the Keepers said. "Not just evolution or independence, but survival or annihilation. We offer unity not out of conquest, but out of love for life itself. The question remains, is humanity ready to join the fight for existence itself?" Jake realized that the fuzzy eggs weren't just recruitment tools or evolutionary catalysts. They were lifelines, thrown across the cosmos to species that might have the strength to stand against the dark. The choice facing humanity wasn't just about their future as a civilization. It was about whether there would be a future at all. Jake's dual consciousness grappled with the magnitude of what he had learned. In the research station, his physical body stood motionless while connected to the fuzzy egg. But his mind raced through possibilities and consequences across the Keeper network. "The burden of knowledge is heavy," the Collective acknowledged. "This is why we do not share the truth of the Void Shapers immediately. Some species are paralyzed by fear of what approaches. Others reject unity out of desperation to maintain their individual identity before the end. Through the enhanced perspective, Jake could see the elegant logic of the Keeper's approach. They offered evolution and transcendence as the primary benefit, because it was genuine. Species that joined the collective did achieve remarkable advancement. But the underlying purpose was survival against an existential threat that no single civilization could face alone. He sensed the research team's presence within their cocoons, their consciousness now part of the greater network. Dr. Reed's enhanced awareness touched his mind briefly, conveying a mixture of gratitude and urgency. "We understand now," Reed's consciousness communicated. "The choice wasn't between humanity and something alien. It was between humanity as part of something greater, or humanity extinct. We chose to become the bridge." Jake felt the weight of billions of lives across Earth resting on his decision. Through the station's communications, he could hear the debates raging across human civilization. Politicians arguing over sovereignty, scientists desperate for the knowledge the Keepers offered, military leaders concerned about surrendering independence to an alien collective. The choice cannot be made by one individual, Jake realized, speaking both through the mental link and aloud in the station. Humanity deserves to know the full truth before they decide. Truth can cause panic, the collective warned. Knowledge of the Void Shapers has driven some species to madness or despair. "Then we're not the species you think we are," Jake replied, firmly. "Humans face their fears head-on. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and countless disasters by adapting and fighting back. If we're going to join your collective, it has to be as equals, not as refugees fleeing in ignorance." The collective consciousness seemed to consider this, thousands of minds weighing his words across the network. Finally, agreement rippled through the mental link. "Very well. But the revelation must be managed carefully. Your species' reaction will determine not only their fate, but their capacity to contribute to our shared defense." Jake began the process of disconnecting from the Keeper network, but found himself reluctant to leave the expanded awareness behind. The clarity of thought, the vast perspective, the sense of connection to something greater than himself, all of it felt like awakening from a dream he hadn't realized he was living. The connection need not be permanent to be meaningful, the collective reminded him. Those who join us can still disconnect when needed. Unity does not require the sacrifice of individuality. As Jake's consciousness fully returned to his physical form, he felt Dr. Park and Lieutenant Wells steadying him. The research station seemed smaller somehow, more confined after experiencing the vastness of the Keeper perspective. "Captain," Dr. Park said urgently, "Earth Command is demanding a full report. They're sending a fleet, but they want answers now." Jake looked at the fuzzy eggs, still pulsing with their gentle light, then at the cocoons containing the research team. His choice would affect not just humanity's future, but their ability to face the approaching darkness. He activated the station's primary communications array, preparing to transmit to Earth. "This is Captain Morrison of the Starship Resolute. I'm about to share information that will fundamentally change our understanding of our place in the universe. What I'm going to tell you may be difficult to accept, but I've verified it through direct contact with an alien collective known as the Keepers." He paused, knowing that his next words would either unite humanity in purpose or fragment them in fear and debate. Earth faces a choice that will determine not just our future evolution, but our survival as a species. We are not alone in the universe, and we are not safe. There is an ancient threat approaching our galaxy, one that has destroyed countless civilizations before us. But we have been offered a chance to join an alliance of species, working together to defend against this threat. Jake looked directly into the transmission camera, knowing that billions of humans across Earth and the colonies would see his words. "The choice is ours, and it must be made together. I recommend we listen to what the Keepers have to offer, not as subjects seeking salvation, but as humans ready to fight for our right to exist among the stars." The fuzzy eggs pulsed brighter, as if approving of his decision to trust in humanity's courage rather than their fear. The response from Earth came faster than Jake had expected. Within hours of his transmission, emergency sessions had convened in every major government, while scientists, philosophers, and military strategists debated humanity's response to the Keeper offer. The debates were as chaotic and passionate as Jake had anticipated, but they were also uniquely human in their diversity. Some nations immediately wanted to accept the collective's offer, seeing it as humanity's best chance for survival and advancement. Others demanded more time to study the implications, worried about losing human independence and culture. But perhaps most importantly, a third faction emerged, those who wanted to negotiate as equals. "We'll join your collective," came the message from the newly formed Human Unity Coalition, representing a majority of Earth's governments. "But we want to do it on our terms. Partnership, not absorption. We'll contribute our unique perspective and capabilities, but we maintain our identity as humans." The Keeper Collective's response rippled through the fuzzy eggs aboard the research station. "Interesting. Most species either accept fully or reject completely. Your proposal for conditional integration is novel." Jake found himself back in mental contact with the collective, serving as humanity's primary liaison. "We're not most species," he replied. "We're humans. We've never done anything the easy way." "This could work," the collective mused. "Your creativity and stubborn independence might be exactly what we need against the Void Shapers." "Very well. We propose a gradual integration. Voluntary participants can join the network while maintaining their individual consciousness, while others remain purely human. Both groups work together toward common defense." Over the following months, the process began. Research Station Omega-7 became humanity's first joint facility with the Keepers, where volunteer scientists and philosophers explored the implications of collective consciousness, while others studied Keeper technology from the outside. Dr. Park was among the first volunteers to undergo partial integration, her scientific curiosity outweighing her concerns about losing her humanity. The process allowed her to access the collective's vast knowledge while retaining her individual personality and the ability to disconnect at will. "It's like having access to the universe's greatest library," she reported to Jake after her first week in the network. "But I'm still me, still human. I just know more." Lieutenant Wells chose to remain unintegrated, but worked closely with the enhanced humans, finding that the partnership between collective-linked and individual consciousness created solutions neither could achieve alone. The research team, still in their cocoons, became the bridge between full integration and human independence. Their enhanced consciousness helped translate Keeper concepts into forms that unaugmented humans could understand and implement. Earth itself began to change. Cities were redesigned using Keeper architectural principles that emphasized harmony with natural systems. Clean fusion reactors replaced fossil fuels within a decade. Medical advances eliminated most diseases while extending human lifespans significantly, but not indefinitely. The Keepers had learned that immortality without growth led to stagnation. But the most significant changes were philosophical. Humanity began to see itself not as the center of the universe, but as part of a vast community of conscious beings, all working toward the same goal: preserving life and complexity against the forces of entropy. When the first Keeper ships arrived in Earth's solar system, they were greeted not with fear or worship, but with curiosity and cautious partnership. Humans and Keepers worked together to establish defensive installations throughout the system, preparing for the Void Shapers' eventual arrival. Jake, now serving as humanity's primary ambassador to the collective, stood on the observation deck of the new Joint Defense Station orbiting Mars. Through the viewports, he could see human and Keeper ships working together, their crews a mix of enhanced and unaugmented beings from dozens of different worlds. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Dr. Park asked, joining him at the viewport. She had chosen partial integration 6 months earlier and could disconnect from the collective network at will. "I think we made the human choice," Jake replied. "We didn't surrender our independence, and we didn't reject help out of pride. We found a third option that nobody else had tried." Through the collective link that Jake now shared periodically, he sensed approval from across the galaxy. Other species were beginning to adopt humanity's model of conditional integration, creating a more diverse and resilient collective than had ever existed before. The fuzzy eggs that had started it all remained on the research station, still pulsing with their gentle light. But now they were no longer mysterious artifacts. They were partners, teachers, and friends in humanity's greatest adventure. As Jake watched human and alien children playing together in the station's recreational areas, he realized that the keepers had been wrong about one thing. They had thought they were offering humanity evolution, but what they had actually provided was the chance for both species to evolve together. The Void Shapers would come eventually, bringing their ancient hunger for entropy and destruction. But when they arrived, they would find not scattered, competing civilizations, but a united galaxy ready to fight for the right of consciousness to exist among the stars. And at the heart of that unity, maintaining their stubborn independence while embracing their cosmic responsibilities, would be the humans who had looked at an impossible choice and decided to make their own option instead. The fuzzy eggs pulsed, once more, and Jake could swear he heard them laughing.